Start with commentator Sam Armstrong, who is ready, poised in the studio to give his thoughts. People just waking up. This is goes through some more of the detail here. This is the issue where, we had the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, saying he's going to stop the boats. He's not stopped the boats. They've cut the number of boats coming over, well, the number of people by 20%, but I'm not quite sure that's exactly what we were really looking for in terms of the number. We've already seen 23,000 coming over this year. So Keir Starmer, he is with his Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, in The Hague today. He's going to meet Emmanuel Macron of France next week. And the plan is basically that they are going to have an EU-wide returns agreement, which the EU have currently got. A lot of Eastern European countries already unhappy with. So basically a bunch of people arrive in Italy, Greece and elsewhere, and then the EU shares them out and everyone has a quota. Last year, there were 1 million people who arrived that way, who sought asylum into Europe. That would mean our quota, if you're going on the normal basis that it would be done through the EU, would be 120,000 people. Rather more than we're actually currently taking in right now. He also says that he would be treating people traffickers like terrorists. The National Crime Agency, our sort of UK FBI, would be freezing their assets and restricting their movements. Sam, where do you want to start?
The mask has slipped. We now can see what Keir Starmer is all about. What do we do with our migrant crisis? Oh, well, let's import Europe's. It's been really hard for us to stop migrants getting all the way to the UK. So what are we going to do? We're going to say, oh, no, you don't need to get to the UK. You don't need to cross Europe. You don't need to cross the Channel. Just get yourself to Italy. Just get yourself to Greece. We'll hop you on a plane. And, we're struggling with 40,000. We've filled up literally every hotel in the country. That's all right. We will treble the numbers. But it's fine, because I, Keir Starmer, get to fly around the world with my Blairite buddies and hobnob with global leaders and do a deal stitched up without democracy, without scrutiny, look grand on the big stage. And when I'm done as Prime Minister, I'll go off and I'll chair some great UN body. This is everything that is wrong with our world. Nothing is happening. The British people are being taken for a fool. They're not getting what they want. The common sense solution, which is to deal with these crazy human rights laws, isn't even being looked at. It makes my blood boil. I
was going to say, no one noticed. Get off the fence, Sam. Get off the fence. I mean, I just find it absolutely fascinating. The thing that I love, I saw this. I didn't even have the energy to get angry about it because it was so laughable when I saw that. And I cannot believe how many papers have fallen for the spin. The Times. Starmer vows to smash people smuggling gangs. Oh, for goodness sake! I mean, is it? Yeah, because we've done so well tackling the drug gangs. And give me a break. But what I find extraordinary is we've got a problem with tens of thousands of illegal migrants coming to this country. That's what they are. You can't get into this country. You can't get into France without a passport and saying who you are and what your purpose of your visit is. So why on earth we think these people are not? Well, some people in the Labour Party don't think these people are illegal. I do not understand. So we've got a problem with illegal migration to a huge extent. The solution that the Labour Party's come up with is to make it legal. Well, then you don't have a problem with illegal migration because you just make it legal. The idea is that we're just going to take our quota. Now, we've already seen Hungary, Poland, other countries going in the Eastern Europe nations going, not so keen on this. They're in battle already with Brussels about the number of people they're being told to take. Now, I feel sorry for Greece and Italy. They're dealing with the brunt of this. They are absolutely struggling. Their people don't want it. We saw the election of Giorgia Meloni in Italy for this very reason. But at the end of the day, well, I'm not sure why it should be our problem. If you choose to be part of the EU and you choose to be part of the Schengen area and have free movement, well, you're welcome to it. There are benefits to that. Yes, you may not have to stand in a passport queue. How lovely for you. However, there are also negatives, which is that anyone who gets onto the beach anywhere in Italy or Greece gets to basically roam around the whole of Europe completely freely until they get to the Channel, when we actually are supposed to have some sort of border control, even when we're in the EU. I mean, why we should take the worst of being in the EU without any of the benefits of being in Europe, and yes, there are benefits, I find absolutely extraordinary. But the key thing is here, Keir Starmer, Yvette Cooper, virtually everyone on the front bench Labour Party, actually, what they really do believe in is open borders. They don't think that there should be any borders. They want to be able, they want their children to be able to go and travel and live freely. They want to be able to retire in their houses in Tuscany or France, and how lovely. And they're completely willing to ignore the downside of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, eventually, let's be honest, millions of people from very, very poor countries around the world saying, I'd like a piece of what you've got in Europe. And if they take a piece of what we've got in Europe, we get less.
Yeah, and the idea, look, in a medium case scenario, if we follow what Europe has got, we get 120,000, which is vastly more than we've got already. But the idea that Europe is going to give us some great deal, or even a reasonable deal on this, is for the birds.
And do you think we're going to get all the brain surgeons and rocket scientists and mechanics and doctors? Because I've got a funny feeling we're not going to be getting those people.
We will end up, if we go down this route, and I don't think he'll ever actually even be able to sign it, as much as he might want to sell out to all his globalist mates, I don't think he will even...
What's going to stop him? If he wins a majority at the next election, I mean, I have to say, there is no better way for him to actually put off your red wall voter at the next general election with this policy, other than literally going up to every single door in a red wall constituency and opening the door and then putting two fingers up to them. This policy is the equivalent of that.
But we're finally seeing the true Keir Starmer. This is a former lefty, crazy human rights lawyer. He's a Republican. He's an Islingtonian. He is a globalist in the extreme. He is everything we have tried and failed with time and time and time again that has sent this country down the river. And he has been lying. He lied first to the Labour Party by saying, look, I'm going to embrace all of Jeremy Corbyn's policies. Then he's been lying to the British public by saying, oh, no, I'm a super red wally type guy myself. Lies, nonsense.
Well, who is the real Keir Starmer? I mean, no, that's it. No one knows. But from the phrases that's been used is that he wants to fix Brexit. Well, we know what he means by that. He wants to not have Brexit, going back into the EU by any other name. That's what virtually all of the Labour front bench want. The reality is that's not what an awful lot of Labour voters want, and certainly those ones who switched sides in 2019, which is, I find, extraordinary. But that is their aim. You can really see it on social media as well, this real sort of upsurge in activity about sort of getting back into the EU. Look, if they want to stand on a manifesto commitment, that we will hold another referendum on the EU and they get elected with a majority and they hold that referendum, so that is the democratic process. I am perfectly happy to stand by that, as long as we have already... I was opposed to a second referendum when we hadn't actually enacted the first. We've enacted it, we've left the EU. If people wanted to vote to go back in, that would be their choice. I would campaign against that. I don't believe they would go back in, because imagine the terms we'd be offered. So I'm quite happy to go through that process. I think it would be a waste of everyone's time and energy politically and bandwidth of government, but entitled to do that. But this is basically, let's get back into the EU by the back door and have all of the worst aspects of being in the EU without any of the benefits. No say, but it's that huddle, send me your huddled masses. But the idea that the people that we would end up having, again, they're no different to the people who are the Channel migrant boat people. They're largely young men, largely unskilled, largely not speaking a language of use to them in Europe. Germany and Sweden, and countries that have faced an absolute nightmare with the huge numbers they've taken. They are not going to be a benefit to people in this country. And they are not the most deserving of the people who do need refugee status and do need asylum.
But Julia, Keir Starmer doesn't care. He hates democracy and he loves cosy deals negotiated in foreign countries. He
thinks that people like him should be in charge of making decisions because they know better than us. Because us voters are a bit we're stupid, ignorant, racist, xenophobic, bigoted plebs, and we don't know any better.
And the further decision is taken away from the British public, the better. I mean, you could go and say, right, Parliament is going to set strict rules that says nobody that comes to here illegally can come in, but Parliament is going to set a cap every year on the basis of what their voters, the public, think is a reasonable amount to take. That's one way of doing it. Keir Starmer's way is to say, no, I'm going to fly overseas to meet with people you've never heard of, to go and negotiate a deal that you know nothing about, that's going to affect you in your everyday life. I'm going to do it, and if you criticise me, if you scrutinise me, I'm going to scream, far right, far right. There's xenophobic, racist attacks on my legitimate government. We know what's coming just around the corner.
Is this a deal breaker? the government. I mean, look, the polls keep saying that, people are not happy with Rishi Sunak. They don't particularly like Keir Starmer, but they're now trusting Labour far more on virtually every policy. I don't think on this policy, but is this the sort of deal-breaker policy? We know the cost of living crisis, NHS waiting lists are higher up the list for a lot of people. Is this the sort of policy that could be the deal-breaker for an awful lot of people when it comes to the vote in swing constituencies?
I genuinely believe that this will turn 3, 4, 5 percentage points off Labour's support. This is not what Labour has been saying up until this point. I don't think he really meant to say it. I think he let it slip a little bit, and it's going to cost him dearly.
Yeah, well, I mean, no one in the Labour Party ever wants to actually let slip anything on this, because whenever they're on and I ask them simple questions like, so how many will be paid? I've never yet had a number. I'm just like, just to the nearest zero would be nice. But there we are. Lots to talk about. Love to hear from you. Do get in touch. What do you make of Keir Starmer's new plan to tackle the Channel migrant crisis, dealing with illegal migrants arriving in the tens of thousands by basically making them legal and arriving in the hundreds of thousands? Solution? I'm not sure. Love to hear what you have to say. Do get in touch. Tweet me at TalkTV. Text the word TALK to 87222.